Okay. Welcome, everybody. We're going to get started, 7 o'clock. And first, just attendance, board members Bruning and Biles are absent this evening. And our business official, Lynn Durway, had planned to present and be present virtually tonight, but due to some technical difficulties, we're not going to do that tonight, and we will postpone, and she'll do two presentations next month, the instructional budget presentation and what's the next presentation? The revenues. Okay, so those two presentations will occur next month instead of tonight. And that said, if you're able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, for all. Okay, the first item on our agenda this evening is a special proclamation.
Thank you.
Give it to Superintendent Luthringer.
There we go. Yes, thank you so much, Marianne. So as the board knows, and likely everybody knows currently, this is the last year of service for Mayor Bob Blais. He's actually retiring after 52 years of service to the village of Lake George and really the surrounding community. So unfortunately, Mayor Blais isn't able to be with us tonight. He had some conflicts, but I did want to read a proclamation, an honorary proclamation that the Lake George Central School District hereby issues the following proclamation in honor of Mayor Robert Blais. In recognition of his 52 years of service to the village of Lake George as its mayor, the Lake George Central School District would like to thank Robert Blais. His dedication to the community and support for the school district has been above and beyond our expectations. We would specifically like to thank him for his commitment to the students of the Lake George Central School District, which included meeting with them on a regular basis to discuss the role of the mayor and instill in them a love for the Lake George community that he has developed and nurtured for more than half a century. So thank you to Mayor Blais for everything, and we wish him all the best in his retirement, although I know he'll be busy still, I'm sure. So thank you so much. I will just add that we did actually, knowing how busy the mayor is, we will be visiting him next week on March 22nd. So a few of us will be visiting him to wish him well. We'll bring this proclamation as well to him and on behalf of the Board of Education. So thank you.
And just to note, I think Mayor Blais is the just in New York State, but in the United States of America. Quite a legacy. Yeah. Okay, next on the agenda, we have our presentation from the music department, and got Amy Baker.
Okay, hi everybody. So I am Amy Baker, and since last the curriculum committee was here, our department has had quite a turnover. So I'd like to start by introducing everybody. So here we have John Alecci. John is at the high school with me. He's a choral director and other general music teachers and all things that aren't band. Next to him is Mallory Meyer. She's our elementary instrumental teacher. And Mariah Nissen, who is our elementary general music and chorus teacher. So we're glad to have them all here tonight. Okay, so here we all are. Okay, I got it. Okay. So the first slide addresses the connections to other subject areas, and music is comfortable living in all of the content areas. Just a few highlights. Music and math, of course, go hand in glove. The music part of the brain and the math part of the brain are interwoven. And when you think about rhythms, that's really just dividing time. We talk a lot about fractions when we talk about reading music and dividing rhythms. And reading music and writing music notation, whether it's traditional notation or other symbolic notation, is really coding and decoding. So it reinforces all of those skills every day in math. English language arts, both written and spoken word, as well as performed and written music, are all about expression and saying what you think and how you feel and understanding that. So whether you're talking about music or whether you're talking about language, using conventions to be able to express yourself and to understand what other people are expressing is the same. We use the same conventions like, punctuation, grammar, syntax. We call it rhythm and chords and phrases. That's all. Social studies is a place where music loves to live. All music is a reflection of the time and place from where it was created. By studying music and the context from which it came, we're able to give a really colorful and personal way for kids to identify with history, with historic figures and other cultures. We also provide kids with authentic ways to experience other cultures. Think African drumming, think Irish dancing, think third graders singing Silent Night in German. These are all ways we live right in that social studies piece. And science, of course, the physiology of producing music, whether you're talking about singing or playing your instrument, the idea of body parts and diaphragms and glottis and all those things. We talk about the way we use our bodies in music all the time. And as they get a little older too, the idea of physics and acoustics and how instruments work, as well as manipulating sounds electronically in sound design classes and using computers that way. So we spend a lot of time rooted in those science world. As far as vertical alignment, with a new group of musicians coming together, we spent some time this summer actually talking about our philosophies of music and what our priorities are in terms of what we want our students to know and experience and be able to do. And so we talked a lot about a universal rhythm language and a tonal vocabulary, which is fascinating to us this summer, and different philosophies on that. And, we came to agreements of what, language that we want to use. Think ta-ta, ti-ti-ta versus one and two and do-ta-datas, all of those things. We spent time there this summer, and also coming up with benchmarks and thinking with the end in mind, where we want our sixth graders to be, where we want our 12th graders to be, especially at the high school, regardless of what track they take, what we want them to be able to know and do and understand. And there's a link there for the board to take a look at. I think our next steps in that would be to come up with assessments along the way and create assessments for each of those benchmarks. And then the last graphic I have there is when we talk about music learning, we never go chapter to chapter. We never kind of turn the page on one element. It's always a constant spiraling of learning and growing. You can't really teach a song and teach the melody without also having the rhythm there. So the progress throughout, even as professional musicians, we never stop that growth. So that's what we do. Okay. The district's goals, the create values. We live the create values every single day in every lesson that we teach. Performing just inherently requires collaboration, teamwork, respect, all of those values. They're what we feed every day. Long-term goals, short-term goals, collective goals. We live and breathe create. The raise the bar goal for the district. We kind of come at this in a two-pronged approach. First, the idea of raising the bar for our expectations and achievement, specifically in music. And as we emerge from COVID and we finally have gotten rid of masks and we can sing full voice, we're together again, not 6, 8, 12 feet apart. Those levels of performance are beginning to rise again to a standard where they were, and we will continue to push those goals. Being able to offer kids of not just high interest, but kids who are interested in getting a little deeper. All of the extra festivals and the honors groups are really important to keeping those achievement levels really high. The other part of raising the bar in the district is that we believe as a music department that involvement in quality music education raises the bar in achievement in every content area. The more and more studies that come out regarding participation in quality music programs really shows that it increases literacy skills, easy for me to say, comprehension, math skills. And to us, the more music kids have, the better they do in all content areas. So we really kind of work both ways in that, in achieving that raise the bar goal. In terms of closing the gap, we are very fortunate that our schedules and our structure allows for all students to be involved in music. That's not true everywhere. And they are involved on all levels. In the classroom, in chorus, in band, in our electives in high school, we are able to have individualized instructions for those kids with special needs. And it really adds a whole dimension to our department. And we're very fortunate that all the way through, if a kid wants to be involved in music, we are able to make that happen for them. Transfer students are a subgroup that I know that sometimes struggle when they come to Lake George, making connections and getting through. And this is kind of anecdotally here, but as we look at the kids who are highly involved in music, those kids really seem to have connections and to do well and are involved in the program here and extra programs as well. So, music automatically creates a community for kids, and they have to socialize when they sing together and dance together. So that idea of hitting those kids who move in the district is important. And then again, closing the gap, the more music kids have, we really studies show, the better they do. So we're just going to keep pushing for more music. Our standards have not changed. There are 4: performing, creating, responding, and connecting. What you mostly see is probably the performing part. But behind all of that are many, many, many lessons where kids are composing their own music, where they are connecting and reflecting on their own performances, other performances, how music is involved in their lives, in school, outside of school, understanding not only that music can make them feel things and make them respond in certain ways, but how does music do that? And how does music work? And so those are the connections that we try to make in addition to performing and doing all of those things within the performing groups as well. And I have to say, this young group of people here has taught this old dog some new tricks regarding that. We don't have standardized tests, but we didn't want to miss the data fund. So we thought we'd share some data. So we thought we'd take a look at our percentages of students who choose to perform or participate in music outside of what is required. So in K through 7, all students are required to take music at Lake George. But in grades 3 through 6, students can elect to take chorus after school. In 4 through 6, they can elect to take band. In 8th grade, they get some choices as well. Their music requirement is fulfilled, but they can choose to continue on with band or chorus in 8th grade. And then, and if you look, those numbers are really just fantastic. We have a huge percentage of kids involved in these elective programs. The 9 through 12 courses, just kind of a little note here, we kind of smushed all those numbers together. If you look in the bottom right-hand corner, those are the music elective courses that are offered. And so the 9th grade, the 60.8% number involves all of the 9th graders who involved in any of those classes. Some double up, some just one. So, as we look at these numbers, we see certainly that there's, a drop between 9th and 12th grade. And so over time, we want to look at if those numbers continue that way, maybe an exit survey here or there, or what happens. We have some ideas of why kids, why those differences are there, but we want to do some research and find out exactly why. Okay, the first thing I can say about the resources and support is thank you. We are, such a fortunate district. We have 2 fantastic principals who, when we say we need this, or we want to go there, or we need a bus, they always make that happen for us. They're really so supportive. We are able to attend the conferences. We are able to send the kids to exciting things, and that's just fantastic. Those numbers that you saw in the instrumental program, those 78%, and then continuing over into the high school, that's fantastic. That requires instruments, and we will keep needing an investment in new instruments as well as repairing and maintaining old instruments. They do wear, just like your car, they need new pads and oils and parts and things. And we do have we have a budget and we have a plan, but that need will be ongoing as our numbers rise. Also, as our demographics rise and we have a community that does not have personal access to instruments, we'll be needing to provide probably more and more instruments. Our performance spaces, both at the elementary school and the high school, are starting to age. Lighting and sounds are an issue, and I know we've talked about these before. But as they start to age and get a little outdated, they begin to prevent us from continuing to grow. So I'm just going to keep throwing that in there. That's not a small project, but we'll keep it there. Support in scheduling music courses. I think my passion that we want as many kids as possible involved in as much music as we can. A great Christmas wish list would be that we would see elementary ensembles during the school day. That's a huge shift. But we can put it out there on our wish list. We think we would get even more kids involved if it wasn't after school. At the high school, those numbers that begin to diminish as they get older, there's lots of factors in that, but sometimes kids just can't fit it in their schedules. As the schedule is contracting, as we have fewer and fewer teachers and the schedule gets tighter, sometimes they get, they have to make choices, which we all do. I just lost my train of thought. But I know that the guidance department, I will say, works miracles here in getting as much as they possibly can for kids in their courses. But it is limiting. I do want to mention, and I don't think I mentioned in the past slide, was that we also have a pretty good contingent of kids who don't fit into their coursework during the day music classes, but participate in a lot of the extracurricular music, jazz band and drumline and the play and all of those things. So sorry, I forgot that. And then last year is this continued support of all of us also being professional performing musicians. We are not only music educators, we are professional musicians, and we all have an extra gig on the outside. And again, you know, Mr. Conway and Mr. Kokoza are so supportive in that. What that brings is an entire network of other professionals that I can sit next to a clarinet player and go, hey, how would you work this out? Or I say, hey, Norm, why don't you come on in and do a flute workshop with my students? And that network is just fantastic. So we appreciate that support and being able to allow us to go and have that extra network of people to bring in. Not to mention, it keeps us razor sharp in our skills as well as musicians. So that's really important to all of us. Okay. And last but not least, our production and sharing of work. Well, that's easy because that's concerts, and that's what you see 2 or 3 times a year with the elementary school and the high school. Those big concerts in the auditorium are our big events. But throughout the year, there's lots and lots of far more informal and more personal events. And we have really tried to increase those over the past couple of years. So whether we send a duo into the main office to play a Christmas duet, or we set up a cafe in the cafeteria with a sound design class, which is hugely popular, or we have a little group project that we share with the 4th grade team. All of those little projects are really important, not only to our students, but I think to the morale of the building and sharing out of what's happening. We take our show on the road into the community. Our elementary folks went over to the Adirondack Christkindl Market. Did I say that right? Our junior high continues to perform every year at the Memorial Day ceremony at Shepherd Park. We have really quite a robust program here. And while our co-curricular things are not really part of the school day and the curriculum, I can't step down without mentioning the incredibly busy and robust program that we have outside of the school day in the music department, and the number of kids that are involved and all those things. Ta-da! Questions?
Donna, go ahead.
And it's just a thank you. I think you know that the Prime family are big music supporters. And one of my children probably would not have graduated from high school were it not for the music department. Because some kids go to school only because there's one topic that interests them. And I had one of those. And music pulled him through. So
Yeah,
I'm,
and he's doing great things now.
well, he's using music.
Yep.
Absolutely. Making a living, yeah, through music. So, yeah, it's just super important and I can vouch for that personally. And thank you for all you do. And I'm excited to see what the new group does. I can't believe there's 3 out of 4 music teachers I don't know. I got to fix this. So welcome aboard.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to say excellent presentation. Thank you very much. I just want to say, Amy Baker, thank you for your leadership. You know, you've been through a lot of other people working with you throughout the years, and we're really lucky to have you working in our district. So thank you, and welcome to our new people. Well, John, you're not that new, so. Anyway, thanks.
Thanks.
Oh, Amy, I was just going to ask, I'm just curious, do you keep track at all of our student graduates that have been involved in music and whether they continue, being involved in music or performance as they go onward
If they kind of keep in touch with us, we keep in touch with them,
okay.
We certainly know over the first couple of years as kids go to music school or they pursue those sorts of things. I don't have a specific way of keeping track of that.
No, I was just curious.
Put it on my list of things to do.
No, that's, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, add it to the list. That's.
And Amy, I just want to say thank you also. I think it's probably impossible to overstate the value of music in our lives and what this district has to offer in the music program. And I can say I've attended a few events at the Elm School and at the high school, and the energy at the elementary school, and, you know, just it's from the new instructors and just like the children and it is just, it's so well, and it's so good, and it's so obviously elevating. And at the high school, junior, senior high school, I noticed like the use of multimedia in a lot of the performances. Like the students are combining, you know, song with poetry and dance and imagery. And I can only just imagine how meaningful that is for them, and like just how satisfying and exciting that is. I just think it's fabulous. I know I'm not the only one in this room who saw you perform, Amy, at the Glens Falls holiday concert down in Glens Falls, and I certainly enjoyed that with a lot of pride and looking right at you. So, yeah, thank you for all you do, all of you. Yeah.
Okay.
It's more for the elementary school music teacher. Is there an issue at all with the cost of instruments is expensive to rent for people? So do we have a program? Are there any kids who are not participating in band, do we think, for financial reasons? Like, I'd like to know that, if there's anything we can do to help with that.
So I do have a program where students rent through John Keel Music, and it's a great program. However, if there's a family that doesn't, like on the letters that I send home, I'm like, please contact me if your child is interested in an instrument, but maybe have a financial hardship, and we provide them with a school instrument. And what I can do partially with my music budget is that I have instrument leases. So in case I don't have a school instrument I can get an instrument lease and provide that student with it. Right now, we do have, I don't know off the top of my head how many, but we do have quite a few instruments for students that are school owned or leased right now.
I don't think there's any.
No,
Right.
I go to every fourth grader when they come in, and I talk to them about being in band and what that's like. And then even if the form they go home with it, they talk to mom and dad or whomever's at home, and then they'll come back and they'll give me their form, and a majority of the fourth graders try it, and if they don't like it, then they won't.
Yeah,
But
that's fine.
yeah,
Okay,
it's-
that's good to hear. All right.
Thank you
great.
for asking.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Next up, we've got Mr. Conway with the elementary update.
It's tough to follow the music department. And I just want to commend them as well. Just so proud of all the work that our music teachers do with our students. And, you know, Fran and I will support the arts and music in our buildings, you know, to the end. So thank you. Yeah. So today I hosted a visitor, and I just want to put in a plug for some of the work that you might not be aware of that the administrative team is doing behind the scenes. We believe in growing leaders, not only within our schools, but in the region. And it's really important for us to do that work. We have two professionals from Lake George, Ashley Gershon and Chris Mandela, who are involved in this Pathways to Leadership program. So we work with them to a certain degree, but also Fran, Megan, and I are part of this program, which is a collaboration between SUNY Plattsburgh, CASDA, and the Wishwe BOCES, where professionals in the region who want to take that crazy step into the world of administration get an opportunity to take courses, or they attend different sessions to learn about that role of a school administrator, and then also shadow us. And we've all had the opportunity to present and or have someone shadow us, and that happened today. And John is very much involved in that as well as a superintendent, attending and supporting growing administrators within the district and then regionally, because it's a real important service that we can do out there. So I wanted to share that with you because it's something you might not be aware of. So this month is a big month at LGS because we're celebrating PARP. And the old term, parents as reading partners, we've kind of morphed into pick a reading partner. So full lineup of events. building upon a theme of reading jogs your mind. And we had a kickoff assembly where we had a school-wide dance and a yoga event. We've had a visit by author Chris Gravenstein last week, who was outstanding and actually was in both buildings, extremely talented. Hats off to Bridget Crossman for organizing these author visits, and to our PTSO for supporting these visits financially. But events go on, like our Reading Buddies program, where we have our older students paired with younger students for meaningful opportunities to have older students reading and younger students reading to our older students. It's really pretty impressive. We kind of set some parameters, and they are meaningful opportunities and really special to see. We also hit a gong. So speaking of music, we do a deer time, a drop everything and read. I have an opportunity to whack the gong, and I know there's a certain way I have to warm it up to make sure that it's okay. So we do that, but it indicates that it's deer time, drop everything and read school-wide. So we have some fun with that. And also within this reading month or celebration, we just had the Battle of the Books competition. As you know, we have grade level teams, so 3rd through 6th, and the kids work so hard since the beginning of the year. They read 5 fiction, 5 nonfiction books, and they learn everything and anything you can imagine, these real obscure details, and they go and they compete against 18 other schools. And we've had a long history of a lot of success because of the work of Bridget and Sarah and all of our coaches. And this year our kids won some rounds, and our 5th grade team wound up as champions. Our other grade level teams didn't place, but they wound up winning some of the battles. So it was really exciting. And it's a unique competition. Talk about high stress, requiring a great deal of teamwork. And I'm so happy that we participate in it, because it is unique and as gut-wrenching as any sport that could possibly exist, that experience for a child, but in an academic way. And our kids love it. Couple of announcements, and then I'll wrap things up. Our kindergarten parent information night is on March 30th. It's amazing. So we'll be welcoming our incoming kindergarten parents and talking to them about that roundup process and getting them excited to have their kids join us at LGES next fall. We do have a career fair, the first attempt at this through our new school counselor, Zoe Chodak, and the PTSO working together, March 21st in our gym from 5:30 to 7 p.m. And it's really an opportunity to build awareness for our students, to find out about different career opportunities. And there are some really unique presenters who will be there. And again, it's our first crack at this, so we're starting small and we're hoping to build upon this in the future. And then our social studies fair will be on Wednesday, April 6th from 5 to 6:30 in the elementary gym. And we always look forward to our science or social studies fairs. Any questions?
Any questions for Jim?
Okay,
Thank you,
thanks.
Jim. And next up, we have the secondary update with Mr. Kokoza.
All right, almost 5 decades on this earth. I didn't know you had to warm a gong up. Okay, speaking of music, we had a wonderful concert earlier this week on Monday before the snowstorm. So I want to thank John and Amy for a wonderful concert. Last week, so this is a 3-week snapshot of the high school. This is all going on in about 3 weeks. Last week was Bravo. We filled the auditorium. This past weekend, Vex went to Syracuse to compete at the state level. They qualified for Worlds. They're going to Dallas, Texas in April, and I believe there's a motion tonight that you're going to be acting upon. Model OAS leaves Sunday for 4 days in DC. Naturalization ceremony is Friday, March 24th, in which nearly 20 individuals will become full-fledged United States citizens in our auditorium. The job fair is Thursday, March 30th, in which the entire school will be run through a job fair with the sole purpose to engage with our community, but additionally to expose our students to get some summer jobs and start working. Our Spain and France trip leaves JFK April 5th, taking 26 Lake George High School students to Madrid, Paris, and everywhere in between, with 4 adult chaperones. Our FBLA is competing at the state level in Rochester, April 18th. And, oh, by the way, spring sports started on Monday. So a very busy time in Lake George High School. And that's my update because I'll be speaking with John in a few minutes.
Does anyone have any questions or comments or Fran?
Scott Smith beat you out.
Thank you, Fran. Okay, next on the agenda is the superintendent's report with Superintendent Luthringer.
Great, thank you so much. I just want to start off by thanking the board and really the community for their flexibility with moving our board meeting. We had incredible snowstorm yesterday, so finally I feel like the meteorologists were right, and we did have a true snow day. And I just want to also say a big thank you and kudos to our building and ground staff for the efforts yesterday. They worked tirelessly. They are here from 5 a.m. all the way till late, well into the evening, and their work really ensures that we're ready to come to school the next day. And that's what's most important. When we have an emergency and a state of emergency, we need to close school. Our job is to get school open as safely and quickly as possible. And without their work and their efforts, we wouldn't be able to do that. So I just wanted to say thanks to Kevin and Chris and Matt and Kevin and the rest of the crew that were here, really working tirelessly to make sure that we were ready to open today. This Friday, we have Superintendent's Conference Day, and we're really excited about this opportunity. We're bringing together K-12 staff. They'll be coming together to really focus on a central question of how do we prepare our students for their future. And the day is going to be focused, the whole morning will be focused on that. It's going to be highly interactive. We're going to have opportunities for, really the goals are to get to know each other a little more between the buildings, to get to know themselves a little bit as teachers, to get to know our students as they are a different generation than all of us and have grown up differently. And then really to start looking at the future of education and the future of work, the skills that are necessary for our students to have when they come out of school. So we're going to spend a whole day on that. There's going to be really 3 major activities that will focus on opportunities to read some research, to watch some short video clips on what schools might look like in the future. They'll have time to brainstorm. They'll have time to draw, write, label, come up with ideas, and really kind of look at it as a launching pad, as a roadmap for us over the next several years. So we're really excited about the day. It's going to be a great, again, interactive, highly engaging day. The administrative team and I, and really Megan and I, will be co-facilitating that day in the morning, and we're really, really excited for it. We also know in the afternoon there's going to be building level schedules with curriculum alignment occurring. There's K2 literacy. We'll be working together on our early literacy program and some shifts and changes that we're looking to make. We know there'll be works on science investigations. There'll be work at the high school on open house, which is a big deal next year. A lot of changes coming up to that to make it more engaging for our parents. So a lot of great work coming up. It's our real first opportunity, honestly, since December. We had a staff development day in December. So it's been on the calendar. We'll put another reminder out, but we're excited for the conference day on Friday. And it just so happens also, March is Music in Our Schools Month. I was mentioning to Amy, it was just a coincidence, I suppose, that the curriculum presentation was tonight. But also it's exciting. There's so many great things going on in the buildings, as you've seen tonight, but really also this month to honor and bring excitement to music. So I know in the Elm School, there's a March Madness type opportunity for kids. And we had a great concert. The senior high concert was really wonderful this past week. I will say it just so happens the last 2 concert nights, the next day have been snow days. So I'm not sure, we got to try to do something different next year, but it seems like that seems to be a pattern. Yeah, so for what it's worth, I guess the music brings out the snow. So it's exciting. Yeah, right. I just also want to acknowledge Bravo as well. That was my first experience seeing Bravo, and I can just tell you, my jaw was dropped. I had no words to express or what I was witnessing. Although the one thing that kept coming to my mind is that that's truly what bringing curriculum to life looks like when you think about it. Students were speaking different languages, acting, working together, collaborating, coming up with ideas, a presentation, all those things, the doing, the task, not so much sitting, taking a test, but they were performing. So it really was special. It was a special event, and we had the auditorium was truly packed, and it was exciting to see. I also just want to acknowledge our Vex Robotics team as well, as I know Mr. Kokoza did. It's really a testament to the program here and the work that goes on in our technology department, and we're excited for them. So it's an exciting opportunity to go to Worlds and be with teams from all over the world, literally. So they'll have teams from really everywhere. So it'll be just a really great learning opportunity for them, no matter how they do. And we're just really excited about that. And lastly, I just want to acknowledge, I had a student reach out to me and who's a participant in FBLA, and she's a freshman. Lily Montville's her name. And she reached out to me and asked me to help her with her interview. So she's preparing for FBLA competitions coming up. And I was so impressed. I was just undoubtedly impressed with her. So I went up and I asked the two teachers, Ms. Hoffman and Mrs. Breslin, and I just said, well, tell me a little bit about what you're looking for me to do here. And they're like, you've got to grill her. You've got to prepare her. This is a big deal. She's a freshman. She's going to be going up against seniors. And I'm like, wow, okay. So I really took it seriously. I really prepared. It was totally a mock interview, but I had come up with 10 questions that a few of them were completely out of the box. I threw her some curveballs, and boy, was she right on it. I couldn't have been more impressed. So then she adamantly said, I really want you to give me some feedback here. And so I did, but it was really hard. I had to dig deep for feedback because she was just so well-spoken, well-prepared. And I know she's going to do a great job, but I just want to acknowledge her. Reaching out is, coming to the superintendent's office, can be intimidating. And, but she was really in it to learn and do her best. So I know that's coming up in the next few months. And for what it's worth, I know she'll be well prepared. So a lot of great things going on as well. So just a few things that we've got going on. And we're excited for our Superintendent's Day on Friday. And then at this point, I'm going to invite Mr. Kokoza up here for a presentation on an update on where we're at with the use of Native American imagery pursuant to the Commissioner's regulations. So we want to provide the board with an update on where we're at with the Student Advisory Committee. And really an update, I've got some new information to share from the state as well. So the first slide here is really an indication of the timeline and the process that we've been taking as a district. So it outlines from when we received the memo and the mandate from State Ed, which was on November 17th. That memo was released to us. We immediately turned that around, notified the community members, talked to all staff, and then the actual regulation was released on December 1st. At that time, when we had some more details, we had some presentations at both buildings on December 6th and 13th. And then what happened is sort of this period of time where the New York State Board of Regents has reviewed that regulation. In between that, we've had presentations to the board talking about next steps. And then Mr. Kokoza and we presented to the whole student council, all of the students, along with student athletes and members of the varsity club on that regulation. At that meeting on the 18th, we really asked, we said, hey, we really want students to be a part of this. We want students to really be at the center of these decisions that need to be made, because it's really about our student body as a district and what their thoughts are. So out of that, we had students volunteer. We had a number of students, which we'll talk about on the next slide, really express interest. And then we had our first student advisory meeting. On February 28th, the public comment period for that regulation ended. So that has since ended. So now it's really back at the Board of Regents. They are reviewing all the comments that were submitted to the state, and we anticipate them possibly making some adjustments to the regulation, possibly not, and then approving it in probably the next month or two. In between there, we've also had our second student advisory meeting on March 6th, and we have our next one scheduled on April 5th, which we'll talk a little bit more about in the next coming slides. So the Student Advisory Committee makeup includes myself, Mr. Kokoza, Mr. Manny, our athletic director, Mrs. Canale, who's the Student Council advisor. We have our communications person involved with that, Marcy, as well. And then we have many student volunteers. You can see their names there, but we've got a really great cross-section of students that expressed wanting to join this, but also it just so happened that it's really grade 7, representatives from really grade 7 all the way up to 12. So we have a really nice group of students that really represents our junior, senior high school. So the committee and goals, the committee charges, so we worked with our students on this, and these have been presented before, but really is to develop a thorough understanding of the Lake George school history. That includes a history of the logo, the mascot, and the nickname. To gain a deeper understanding of the local history pertaining to Native American culture and Lake George local and school history. help define and make suggestions on the 3 areas: logo, mascot, and nickname, and then be a liaison and ambassador between the school and student body. They're very excited about that. They've been having dialogue with student body. They're bringing feedback back to us at this time. And then help us communicate our plan with the school and community as we continue to learn more about our specific obligations. So these charges were established with the group at our first meeting, and we'll review these each time we meet with them. The committee session topic, so again, in January was really a general presentation. We presented to the whole student council on the mandate, the regulation. We wanted them to be aware of what it is and what it says. The first meeting in February, we reviewed the charges, and we spent the majority of the time going over the Lake George history, which we're going to talk a little bit about. It's really interesting. There was aspects of it that I didn't know, and there was many aspects that our students didn't know. So they really found that to be fascinating, interesting, something they can dive into and really think about. In March, out of that meeting, we asked them, really, what would you like to continue to know more about and learn about? And they really said, we really want to understand what the state is asking us, and we want to understand the regulations. So we did actually, we printed them, we put them out, we went through them, we did, close reading strategies. We really looked at them. We answered any questions they might have if we had the answers, and really spent time digging into that. The April meeting is really going to be looking at the perspectives from Native Americans. So we've developed an essential question that focuses on how groups and really Native Americans feel about being portrayed as a mascot. So that again came out of our group meetings with the students. They wanted to understand that perspective more. So that will be the April meeting, and then future meetings will continue to be to develop really from the goals as we talk about at the end of each meeting. Where do we want to go next? So we're really using that as an opportunity for our students to share what they really wanted to learn more about. So what I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Kokoza here is really to bring the board up to speed on really the history of Lake George, which again, I found very interesting. And there is a very, very long history here with some varying different features that Mr. Kokoza is going to go over.
So the beauty of Lake George is everyone has a story. However, everyone also has their own version of that story. What we were able to do through documentation, through pictures, and through research with the archives is put together the next few slides detailing specifically about nicknames, logos, and mascots for Lake George Central Schools. So the focus being, the nickname, which is what the regulation may or may not impact, logo, which the regulation definitely impacts, and mascot. So pre-1926, you might say, really? Yes, pre-1926, our school district did exist. It existed across the street where the current Duffy's Bar is, right? Wedged between the bank and the courthouse. And back then, known as the Caldwell District, we used the LG. In fact, that picture that you see right there, the date of that basketball is 1916. That predates this building. So on their shirts, those specific student athletes, they had the LG as the logo. And the nickname, they're known as LG. We could not find any known mascot while we were at the original location on Canada Street. In 1926, the district, through really the building no longer served a useful purpose across the street. It was cold, it was old, it was falling apart. It predated the turn of the century. This community made a commitment to education by building this facility, 381 Canada Street. So the new Canada Street location, our current location, was constructed. At that point, we were called the Lake George Union School. Our logo, again, was the LG, and the nickname, we were the Lake George Lakers. There was no known mascot at that point. The gymnasium, which is our current 7th grade cluster, that was the gymnasium, had an LG on center court. And if you want to see a picture of the old gym, old gym, because we've had 3 gyms, there's a picture of it in the hallway down the memory wall across from the auditorium. There's a beautiful picture of that gymnasium. In the 1940s, after almost 2 decades, 15, 20 years of being the Lake George Lakers, it was decided, for no known reason that John or I could find out, to change the nickname to the Lake George Georgians. However, we retained the LG as the logo, and again, no known mascot. In 1951, throughout New York State, and specifically here in Lake George, we were centralized, in which all of the schools, the one-room schoolhouses throughout the community, were brought into this building, which dramatically increased the size of our district, but also changed the fact that we were now drawing from not just the village of Lake George, but several townships in the area. And that centralization is actually the geographical footprint of our district right now. The expansion of the building occurred with several wings going on, and a new gymnasium was built, which is our current auditorium. So in the early 50s, a new gym was built. The original gym was converted into learning spaces. And after a few years of being centralized, our nickname became known as the Lake George Warriors, and the use of the Native American as the mascot began. However, LG continued to be used as our logo, with the flame and the tower being added to the LG, along with the usage of the lake logo. So if you look, there's a mid-60s news and views. And in the top left corner of that news and views is the lake logo. And there are news and views newsletters in the 50s that had that lake logo. It's too bad we didn't trademark it in 1950 because that lake logo would be ours. In 1959 and 1960, the center court of the new gymnasium, which is our current auditorium, was painted with a Native American image. The individual who painted the center court is Chuck Hawley, a graduate of Lake George High School, well-known local artist. And that painting currently hangs in the hallway on the way down to the gymnasium, was at center court for the duration of that gymnasium from the 1959 until we constructed the new gymnasium. The interesting thing about that drawing or painting, it's a cartoon. It's actually not based on anything historically accurate. It is Chuck, who is a very imaginative artist, drew it freehand from what he thought a Native American locally looked like. 1968, the elementary school was constructed and opened, and interestingly enough, no Native American imagery anywhere in the elementary school was utilized. In 1990, the new gym, our current gym, was built. And the second gym, our auditorium, was turned into the auditorium. So the new gym was constructed, which is our current gymnasium. The old gymnasium was converted into the current auditorium. However, the center court of our gym had the LG as the logo in center court, and the scoreboards had the LG with the flame put on the scoreboards. So that has existed in our gymnasium, our current gym, since 1990. That is not new. That has not been repainted. It has always had the LG center court and the scoreboards with the LG on them. In the 1990s, the old gymnasium center court, the one that we abandoned and turned into the auditorium, the Native American painting by Chuck Hawley was hung on the wall in the new gymnasium lobby. In 2001, the New York State Education Commissioner, Richard Mills, issued a memo to boards of ed asking them to end the use of Native American mascots. So good 10 years after our gymnasium was constructed. In 2001, as a response to that memo, Lake George Central School District formed a stakeholding committee to review the usage of the logo, mascot, and nickname. And we slowly, as a district, began to move away from the usage of Native American imagery with certain district purchased items. However, we retained the mascot of a Native American, and the Warrior nickname. So when that memo came out in 2001, the commissioner at the time charged districts with reviewing the matter. That was what he asked. Our district did that and determined that we would keep the mascot and the nickname. In 2010, Lake George began the process to no longer have Native American imagery on district purchased items, including our website, letterhead, athletic uniforms, facilities, logos, et cetera, et cetera. And the usage of the Native American mascot was discontinued and discouraged to wider groups. We started to utilize the LG as the symbol for our logo. 2017 to present day, throughout those years, those organizations ranging from the PTSO, the alumni, and the Booster Club continued to discontinue, that's an oxymoron, discontinued over that time period the usage of the Native American logo and adopted LG or different forms of LG as their organizational logos. You may recall last year, November 21, the Lake George Board approved the resolution designating the Native American head as a heritage image. And then fast forward to this fall, November 22, Commissioner Rosa issued the mandate directing districts to discontinue the use. So what did I just say? A quick summary. Nicknames. Lake George Schools has had many nicknames over our history, starting with LG, pre-1926, to Lakers, to Georgians, to Warriors. And if you're a student of American history, you can draw some parallels to what was going on in America during those decades and time periods as to perhaps why our name shifted to Warriors in the 1950s. However, we have consistently retained Lake George within our official school organizational and institutional name. Lake George High, Lake George Union School, Lake George Union Free School, and then the present name of Lake George Central School District. And we only put that in there as a point of reference because there are some districts that even their actual organizational name is in question. Logos. Since 1900, the consistent logo of the Lake George Central School System has been the usage of the interlocking LG, with the flame in the tower being added to the LG in the 1950s. It has widely been used for over 100 years in this school district. There was also the usage of the Lake logo, which I showed you, with the LG in it since the 1950s. And again, it started to pop up again in 2015 to our present day because locally it became popular again. Again, we should have trademarked it. And then mascot. The only mascot that our research we could find that our district has had is the Native American mascot, starting in the early 50s and discontinuing the wide usage of it around 2010.
So thank you, Mr. Kokoza. That was it is tremendous history lesson, and I know you're a steward of history. So thank you for all the work that you put into that, and all the work we did, a ton of research to really identify the last 100 years of our district. So what does this mean for Lake George? So certainly the district's going to comply and recommend the resolution to be passed by June 30th. It's required. We have to. And that really means the Warrior head and logo mascot will continue to be retired. It will be more official, I suppose, by June 30th with the resolution being passed. We have two specific areas, as Mr. Kokoza mentioned. There's been a lot of work done around this over the last decade, but there are really two areas that need to be addressed. So the Chuck Hawley painting will need to be, we've received some advice and pertaining to this regulation on what we can do with either some schools might have a tremendous amount of old athletic equipment. They might have, we don't have that, but lots of schools do have that. So there's been a lot of questions surrounding that. We cannot sell anything. We cannot put it up for auction. but we can donate or we can store any items that might have Native American imagery on it. So that is something that we'd be looking to do to the Lake George Historical Society, donating that painting. It is a piece of student artwork, and that is something that at this point, that is an option that we're going to explore further. The athletic banners in the high school gym, they come down every single year to be touched up, I would say, or dusted and things like that. There are several remaining that have the Native American warrior head on it, so those will be addressed and changed to the LG this summer. That is part of our regular process of bringing them down, so we have an opportunity to address that. And then the last piece is we're really still waiting for further guidance on the warrior nickname. The state education department, as I've said before, has developed an Indigenous mascot advisory group. I have some information on that. So they have been meeting. They meet once a month, and that advisory group is now accepting school district questions through email. So we are going to send an email. We're going to talk about our process that we've done, as you've seen over the course of time, and we're going to ask them about that. That is their specific focus, is to address different questions that other districts might have. So it's an opportunity for us to get some additional information and feedback from this group that does contain members of school districts as well as Indigenous tribes as well. We do expect the regulation to be passed by the Board of Regents in the next 2 months. What we were told last week is that State Ed will be releasing more guidance to school districts. So like I said, the regulation may be tweaked pending the public comment. So we are anticipating and have been told to expect further guidance. So I do think it's prudent to wait on that. It will definitely be well within the timeline of June 30th. We have been told specifically that districts need to adhere to that timeline. So we anticipate the regents approving the regulation, followed very quickly by State Ed guidance to districts, and then well in advance of the June 30th deadline. So what are we going to do between now and then? We're going to continue to engage with our student body through the advisory group. As you've seen, that's really going to be important. And part of what we are keeping them going about is we're still waiting for some guidance. So we've at least established a foundation with this group if we do need to look at the nickname. And then communicate with the community as we continue to learn more. Certainly we'll put information out as we know more. At this point, this is the information we have. And we'll continue to provide updates to the Board of Education leading to that required resolution by June 30th. The resolution, just a comment on that, is it's a commitment to a plan. As many districts are in a different place in Lake George, the plan must be finished by the 2024-25 school year. So as we know, some districts are, they might have imagery on their athletic fields, things like that are going to take time to address. So we are not necessarily in that same position as other districts, but the state is at least recognizing there needs to be some time to develop and implement a plan. So I think that was the last slide. So that is where we're at. Does the board have any questions for us?
I have a couple of questions. First, thank you for the very detailed and fascinating history lesson. That's really useful and appreciated. I have a question. The advisory group, the SED's Indigenous Mascot Advisory Group, they're receiving questions from districts. Are they also informing are they helping to inform the state's guidance? Are you aware of that? I'm just curious.
They're part of the process, but what we've been told is they meet once a month. We can submit questions, this was just what we were told last week. So we can now submit questions and that they will get back to us within probably a month. That's what we've been told. We do believe that based on some of the questions they'll receive from districts, they will provide feedback to the state and the Board of Regents.
Thanks. And another question that I had, I was just thinking about the banners that come down, and are the banners, are they historical? Like, do they have dates on them, or are they something that's new every year?
So the banners we're talking about are the blue banners that hang on the back wall of the gymnasium, the southern wall. We take them down every year to update them based on the championships that our teams have won for that academic year. There's a handful of them that have in the top corner the Native American logo mascot. the company that we have been working with for the better part of over a decade, updating those banners annually, she looked at the felt banners and thought that she could stitch out and stitch in an LG. And for some of the older ones, perhaps stitch over the headdress with the LG, which is the logo of Lake George Athletics. So they come down anyway. It's just a slight added cost to address that top corner of those banners. They are not historical. We've had to replace some that have torn. Some are older than others. You can tell by the fading of the color on them. But they're updated annually.
Yeah, and it just, the thought of it brought a question to my mind that I hadn't really thought of before, but you know, the warrior and the indigenous, the image is part of our history. And if there, but if there are historical items that are, you know, perhaps that could be considered useful for educational purposes of our history, is that part of the mandate as well? That, I mean, I don't know if, I just don't know the answer. Is that, I don't even know if there's an example that exists of that, but
Like, for example, Marianne, Mohonasen schools, when you walk into their main lobby, they have a fairly substantial educational pieces to the indigenous folks that used to occupy the property of that school district, hence the name of the district. So what they're trying to get guidance on is whether or not they can retain those educational pieces that inform folks, teach folks, but also promote school spirit and school focus. The banners in the gym, I don't know what the leap would be for the educational piece. You know, that's tied directly to the athletic teams.
right.
Yeah.
And I wasn't thinking of that in terms of the educational piece, but it just made the question come to mind about our own historical record of where this district has been and images that may be, you know, connected to that process. I just wondered if there was any specification around that type of item.
Yeah, I think it would have to be
regulation.
depend on the display. The regulation is
Yeah.
pretty clear that imagery has to go. So I think it'd depend on this display and how we were to recognize it. I think something like a timeline that we, you know, showed today would be appropriate and would make sense. So, but the regulation has been pretty clear that that imagery is to be retired.
That's
Yeah,
the kind of thing I
imagery-
was thinking of.
Yeah, imagery connected to the nickname, mascot, or logo.
Thank you. Great presentation. Thank you. Any other questions or? Okay.
I don't have a question, just a comment, a couple of comments. That was thorough, Fran, like that's right up your alley is the history. Nice job. That was good. If I just want to go back to the beginning of your presentation, John, thank you for recognizing the buildings and grounds because sometimes we forget that we have our driveway, our walkway, whatever. These guys are taking care of all the properties and the kids are getting dropped off and it's clean and it's safe for them. So thank you for recognizing them. I appreciate you being inclusive with the students for this next step. It's a mandate. There's nothing we can do. You guys could easily have said, hey, here's 3 ways we want to go. But getting them involved, I think is great for them, owning a piece of it as well as getting their input because they might have some wonderful ideas of what we can do. So thank you.
It's interesting with that piece, they've been very open and honest with John and I. And from the logo standpoint, they're like LG, whatever. From a mascot standpoint, they just shrug. You know, there's not an understanding really about what do you do with a mascot in a high school. But in terms of the nickname, Warriors, I mean, it's been fairly clear that the group that we've been working with and the wider group, they'd like, if possible, to retain the Warrior nickname. And I don't think that we disagree with that. We'll do what we can to fulfill those wishes. However, a lot of it's out of our hands, you know. So that's what we're waiting on, that specific guidance. And the students have been so supportive towards that end.
Thank you. Okay, next we have got the Audit and Finance Committee report by Mr. Fasulo.
Thank you. There was a lot that we reviewed. The Treasury report for January, we reviewed. Taxes were received on state lands for about $242,000. New York State transmitted STAR and lottery funds. STAR is school tax relief funds in the amount of about $335,000. We are also now earning a little over 4.5% on our cash investments. So to try to maximize that interest income, we try to leave the funds in there as long as we can until we need them for payroll or paying bills. The claim auditor's report for January was reviewed. There was nothing of concern in that report. Everything was good. On December 9th, 2022, there was a statewide amendment for real property tax law that allowed taxing authorities such as schools, ourselves, to offer residential property tax exemption to volunteer firefighters and ambulance workers. We talked about it and we thought not recommending this exemption, since all it would do is it would shift the tax burden from one group of taxpayers to the remaining taxpayers to pick up the difference. So we recommend not going down that way. Lynn also reviewed the tax levy computation, which was a long process, and God bless her for doing it. The maximum allowable tax levy limit was about $21,453,000. It represents about an increase of 2.3% over the 2022-23 tax levy. You guys know that this is a long process. She was going to do a presentation tonight, which she'll do 2 of them next month, ultimately for the budget vote in May. The Transportation Department is requesting 2 60-passenger buses to be purchased next year, and that is in line with our 10-year bus replacement plan. Because the prices right now are high and they're increasing substantially, they would like to purchase the buses now. The payment is not due for a year after you purchase the bus. So we're including $65,000 in the budget for 2 new vans, and then having that first payment due the following year will help us keep it level, the budget level. Lynn is going to review the instructional portion of the process of the proposed 2023-24 budget next month. Overall, preliminary figures indicate that it'll be about $12,348,000. This is a decrease of about $116,000 over the current year's budget. That's mainly due to a decrease in staffing, as well as decreases in the number of students attending BOCES. And it's not that students are less interested in BOCES, they just had a high number of students this year. There's still plenty of room for BOCES if kids do want to opt in, but right now we're going to budget for a certain number and it just happens to be lower than this year. So that's why you'll see that discrepancy of $116,000 less. And then last, John reviewed a letter to David O'Brien. He's the chairman of the County of Warren and Washington Industrial Development Agency. He was providing comments and input regarding their proposed amended and restated uniform tax exempt policy, as well as insight into their current state of pilot agreements, payment in lieu of taxes, on school districts in general. The districts, our concern was their position regarding the pilot agreements for solar companies and the need. We essentially were asking David O'Brien to get a seat at the table, to have our voice heard when it comes to the pilot programs with the solar companies. And the letter did go out, I believe. Right.
And under advisement.
Okay, great. And really, that was it. Any questions? Okay.
Thank you, Mario. Okay, next up, we have the Curriculum Committee report by Mrs. Earl.
Okay, so on February 14th, we met in our curriculum committee meeting, and the technology department presented for us, and we were fortunate enough to trek down to the technology room and actually have the presentation in their space. So that was really impressive. We saw they have their own robotics room that they can use to develop their robotics, and we all know where that has led them. They have an exceptional, I mean, I've included the presentation on your minutes so you can look at it. The program that they have is really, really great. It's really nice that they can offer classes K-12 in both buildings. They do work a lot with teamwork, cooperation, communication. They integrate into to other units, other curriculums, math and science. It was great information, very impressive. If anyone has a chance to visit their space, it's really nice. They've redone it. So I don't know if any of you have any questions about it, but it's pretty good. That was it.
I agree. It was really, it's its own universe
Yes.
down there. It was pretty neat. Okay, thank you, Rosemary. Okay, next up is the policy committee report, and that's me. Let's see if I can make this smooth. As you can see, there are many policies on the agenda this evening. We have 5 policies moving forward to second read. We discussed each of those at the board meeting last month. And we have 10 policies moving forward to first read. 2 of them came before the committee by way of Erie 1 BOCES policy services updates, and the other 8 were reviewed by our Lake George manual review. And I will go through each of those that are up for first read, and starting with 4240, evaluation of the superintendent and other administrative staff. We made suggested some additional language, essentially just to articulate a little bit more of the philosophy and holistic purpose of evaluations, and recommended incorporating that into the policy. The second one is 5322, district. I'm going through, the first ones I'm going through are the ones that we did all by Lake George manual review. So the second one is 5322, and that's district provided cell phones. This policy was looked at and examined at the district level, and making sure that the policy is in alignment, or that our practices are in alignment with the policy. And there were some minor wording revision suggestions. And that's it. Just to make the language more contemporary and accurate. The next policy, 6211, employment of relatives of Board of Education members. In this policy, I think there was an Erie 1 update that had been received in the past, maybe that did not get incorporated, and it was just a minor wordsmithing revisions to change the tense of the policy, nothing substantive. The next one, 6552, military leaves of absence. This was just minor wordsmithing, making the language more contemporary. The next one, 7221, excuse me, participation in graduation ceremonies and activities. This is a required policy that actually was not in the manual. Although all of the building procedures that this policy stipulates are in place, we got our hands on it when we realized that it needed to be there. We have Erie 1 sample and examined it together and moving it to the first read. The next policy is 4310, Superintendent of Schools. And this is a policy, I think I've brought it up at least once in the past. This is a policy where what we had currently in the manual was very detailed and specific, job, like in more of a job description format. And given that the district will be creating a job description manual, we're opting to house that information there. And then we are suggesting that we switch this policy to the NISBA template, which was more broad with the language. And we made some minor suggested revisions to that to allow for the superintendent to appoint a designee if unable to attend a meeting, and also to acknowledge that the board may meet without the superintendent when employment contract or performance is discussed in executive session. The next policy is 5310, bonding of employees and school board members. And we just have a minor suggested revision here to clarify that a blanket bond is carried on all school employees, board members, and volunteers. The next one is 5682, cardiac automated external defibrillators in public school facilities. And this one was examined at the district level. Superintendent Luthringer, to his credit, recognized that it was important to make sure that our practices are in place, and from a safety perspective, that we understand what needs to happen in terms of these devices, specific, and to make sure the practices align with the policy. Some of the specifics around it, at least one staff member per event at the school must be trained in the operation and use of an AED. And this conversation and review has triggered, the acknowledgement of the need for training, which I think is occurring, in use of these devices for cleaning staff, administrative team, others. It triggered pulling the youth commission into the conversation, maps of AED locations updated. Yeah, and other than that, just minor wordsmithing changes in addition to that, so. And next we have 4250, planning and, let's see. That is one, right, 4250, planning and evaluation is a policy that we reviewed, that we are recommending to retire. This is a policy that does not exist in the Area 1 BOCES sample policy manual. Not sure how it came to be in our manual, but we spent a while. We had a good conversation about this in our policy committee, and one of the things that we recognized is that some of the language in this policy was a little bit vague, lent itself to potentially differing interpretations. But we also recognize that we have other tools at our disposal that speak to the same need for planning and evaluation, and specifically like our shared decision-making collaborative process tool. So it's a 2-sentence policy, and we've decided we can live without it, and we're recommending that we retire it. And then the last 2 policies, I think I'm getting all of them, these are the 2 that came to us by Erie One update. 7512 is student physicals, and this update reflects requirements around screening for lead in children. But as is the case often when something comes before us, it prompted like a very thorough look at the rest of the policy and a lot of collaborative weigh-in, and making sure that the district practices are in alignment with the policy. So that was very positive. The last policy is 8450, home, hospital, or institutional instruction, parentheses, homebound instruction. This was formerly known as the home tutoring, homebound instruction policy. And this update reflects new requirements around instructional services at home, hospital, or institution, in terms of there's more detailed types of data that are required to collect and maintain and track, including, around the instructional delivery plan, the treating provider, the tutor, procedure for requesting instruction is detailed in this policy now. Specifies the requirement of the board to provide instructional services to all residents, students, K through age 21, public or non-public enrollment. And yeah, it's kind of just a big update, and we're recommending incorporating those revisions and moving it forward to first read. That's a lot. We also had a policy committee meeting on March 6th, and in addition to all that I just spoke to, we also just touched base briefly on our policy manual review schedule, and we recognize that at this point, if we move a certain number of policies forward by our manual review per month, we'll be able to comfortably maintain like a 5-year review cycle for the manual. So there'll never hopefully be policies that get so outdated. We'll be able to, and also keeping policies top of mind, which is good for us too. So that's my report. Any questions or comments? Sorry, it's so long. Okay. Okay, so next we have our first public comment. Pardon? Okay. This is our first public comment session, which is for any comment that's related to the agenda thus far. And let me just see here. I'm out of practice. Do we have anyone attending virtually? Okay, so if you're attending virtually and have comments or questions, you can please feel free to send an email to boe@lkgeorge.org, and the board and superintendent would have an opportunity to view those comments after this meeting. And I'll ask that when you come up, if you just state your name and be reminded that there's a 3-minute limit to each person's comment. And when you're finished, you can just take a seat. So the first name here, I have Lisa Doster.
Good evening, Lisa Doster. My comment tonight is projected toward budget and finance. And as stated in the minutes, the budget is a work in progress since not all costs are known at this time. In regard to my February 14th public comment on our Board of Ed spending of thousands of district money to attend a NYSBA meeting in April, the board did respond via email on February 17th, and I'm speaking tonight to keep the public in the loop to that email response. Now I'm going to read that email. Hi, Lisa, writing to follow up on your public comment, February 14th. You suggested that virtual attendance by board members at the National School Board Association convention would have the district, would save the district money. However, virtual attendance is not a viable option, as the board members planning to attend will also be presenting, and this is expected to occur in person. The district expense for this conference consists of registration fees exclusively. Money budgeted specifically for board professional development was available for this expense. All other costs related to the attending in person are being covered by the individual board members. I responded to that February 18th. Thank you for reaching out. The email response portrays taking the defense on why the board physically is attending this out-of-state conference. This appears very self-serving when spending thousands of district money that could be better used during hardship times like these. This does not look good, and we may be better in not attending this function altogether. The leading focus really should be on our necessary spending at this time. Currently, we are not really helping our students with their out-of-pocket expenses to attend special functions. These expenses are on the rise and going through the roof. As a result, many students may now not be able to participate, and it is our job to mitigate and help solve this problem. Lake George Central School District has had a long-standing tradition of collaborative decision-making, which places students at the center of each decision, and this must continue. If there is an abundance of money in the board budget, this should be reallocated to student initiatives, first and foremost, to help ease the hardships and help the students persevere. We all win when we help the students win. This is best practice leadership that we take an oath to serve on this board. Why are we not doing this? Who is really making these decisions? And what are we trying to prove? What precedent does this set that our board spends thousands of dollars for board initiatives instead of using it directly for our students? We need to be fiscally responsible in our decision-making. In closing to this, well, we're not really being fiscally responsible. And if we forecast forward with the current trends, including major inflation, major tax increases across the board, and now banks closing their doors, we would see at this projected time, it is necessary to cut our spending and not attend this function altogether. Thank you for the mascot info and the history this evening. But what happens if the bill for the mascot doesn't get passed into a state law? In 2001, a bill was proposed and not passed into law, and I believe again in 2006. Also, thank you for making sure the snow is removed on the sidewalk where it meets the crosswalk. It was there for over a week, but it is removed now. So I was grateful to see that this evening because it does pose safety issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Go ahead, Linda.
Hello, Linda Clark. I just want to say, I find that it's too bad that that New York State can't find a way to celebrate our Native American culture rather than canceling it. I just find that so profoundly sad. But I do want to say, Mr. Kokoza, that presentation was excellent, and I thank you very much for that. The other thing I want to throw out there is I appreciate you going and speaking about the solar tax exempt status. I know about that as well. That is crazy that they would offer that. Those companies come in, they don't offer any work for our local community, and they take the money and run. So thank you very much for speaking about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Is there anybody else who'd like to make a comment? Okay. We will move on to the school business consent agenda.
As recommended by the superintendent, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Lake George Central School District hereby approves the school business consent agenda items A through H. In summary, motion A is a recommendation for the board to approve the minutes from the meeting held on February 14th. Item B, recommendation the board approve the monthly CSE recommendations. Items C and D are regards to the treasurer's report and the claims auditor report reviewed by Mr. Fasulo earlier today. Item E is a motion to approve the participation in the cooperative purchasing program coordinated by BOCES for commodities purposes. This is a financial benefit to the district as presented. Item F is several policies that have gone through the customary first and second reads. It's my recommendation that the board approves these updated policies. Item G is in reference to policy 4250, planning and evaluation, being recommended to be rescinded from our policy manual as it is, as stated earlier today. Item H is a motion to accept the proposal for subsurface exploration and geotechnical evaluation from Terracon in connection with the capital project transportation facility site as presented. That's it.
Okay, we have a first from Janine. Second from Rosemary. Any questions or discussion about any of the items? Okay, then all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
As recommended by the superintendent, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Lake George Central School District that the following proposition is presented to the voters at the annual meeting of the school district to be held on Tuesday, May 16th, 2023. The proposition is in reference to acquiring 2 school buses at a maximum aggregate cost not to exceed $302,000. This is in reference to, again, what was discussed at the Audit and Finance report. And just to further summarize, be it resolved, the district clerk is hereby authorized and directed to include notice of such proposition in the notice of the annual school district meeting, and that this resolution takes effect immediately.
First by Mario. Second from Rosemarie. Any questions or discussions? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Nope. Okay, motion carries. And then item C.
Item C, sorry. As recommended by the superintendent, be it resolved that the Board of Education of Lake George Central School District hereby approves the middle school and senior high VEX robotics team's request to attend the World Championship VEX robotics competition in Dallas, Texas from April 25th through May 4th. Dates are approximate attendance, and we've had all of our teams qualify, so they're going pending your approval.
Donna, second. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? You're abstaining. Okay. Okay. Motion carries. And next up, we have faculty staff recognitions, item A.
As recommended by the superintendent, be resolved that the Board of Education of Lake George Central School District hereby approves the faculty staff consent agenda item A. Is a motion, whereas to protect this individual's privacy, the superintendent has requested that we do not use the individual's name. Whereas pursuant to Resolution 23-7, wherein the Board of Education of Lake George Central School District resolved pursuant to 913 of educational law that a certain employee submit to a medical examination by a physician chosen by the district. It's also hereby resolved that this employee is placed on paid administrative leave effective March 13th, 2023, and will remain on leave until a thorough review of the medical reports prepared by the examining physician can be reviewed. This leave will not be extended beyond June 30th, 2023 without further resolution by the Board of Education.
We get a motion? Rosemarie, a second. Janine? Questions, discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Faculty and staff resignation.
As recommended by the superintendent, be resolved that the Board of Education of the Lake George Central School District hereby accepts the resignation of Brian Houlihan from the position of mechanic bus driver in the non-competitive class of civil service effective March 17th, 2023.
We get a motion. Donna?
Is that the same go?
Yeah. Second from Rosemarie. Any questions, discussion?
Yeah.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I just would also like to thank Brian for his years of service. I believe Brian's worked for the district for at least 12 years, and he has been accepted as the Director of Transportation in the Warrensburg School District. So we're excited for him and proud for him, and certainly wish him all the best.
Our loss, their gain. Next up, we have Board of Education comments and discussion. Anybody have anything on their mind?
Dates in terms of decisions with how the board elections will be handled in terms of whether or not there'll be still meet the candidates, et cetera, as the.
Yeah, no, I can comment on that. So I know at the last meeting, Tricia asked for attorney review of that. So that has been, I've consulted with our school attorney, and there was really the two questions that came up were regards to location and campaign materials. In regards to the location, there's no concern. We are able to host the League of Women Voters. It's been a longstanding practice in Lake George, but there is nothing indicating that we cannot host it in our facility. It is facilitated completely by the League of Women Voters. We house it and host it, and certainly it makes sense to have it in a school that is offering their space for board candidates. It does make sense, and not so much sense to maybe host it off site. So the recommendation was to continue to have it on site. The second recommendation that we've already started work on is really just clearer expectations for those candidates and for the purpose of them attending. And that will include more clearer details in regards to not bringing campaign materials.
Okay.
And those were the two questions, and those were the recommendations by school attorney.
Oh,
So we anticipate hosting it still. We have reached out to the League of Women Voters. We know we're starting to get into obviously election season. So I know that they have recently responded and are excited and able to host. We're planning for that. So we've updated our materials, and certainly as we get into the next several weeks, there'll be more information coming out. So I'll have the updated letter that goes out to the candidates for board review this week.
Thanks very much, John.
Yeah, thank you, John. Any else?
In regards to the tax exemption for the firemen's and EMS worker, I just wondered if we could possibly, I know there's some districts in Albany who are doing that. I just wonder if we can keep an eye out and know what's going on down there, like if they're learning from it or if it's making anything happen, like people being more involved in their community, or I don't know. I just wonder if we could just keep that open and look at, the districts that are doing it, and maybe even, I know you have superintendent meetings, that ask maybe that question sometime. That's all. Thank you.
No, absolutely. There's a number of districts that are in different spots, but I know there was recently some information went out from a variety of districts that they're going to be doing something very similar. They're going to be kind of tabling that till possibly next March. So they have to submit by March 1st, and they're going to be looking, at their community and looking at the different needs, and the boards will be evaluating it this time next year. So I know that went out as sort of a plan for multiple districts. So something that we can absolutely do is keep an eye on things.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, so it's now our second public comment period. I don't have anybody's name, but is there anybody present who'd like to? Go ahead, Lisa.
Hi, Lisa Doster. In regards to the voting, just so you're aware, on school property, the Senate and Education Committee is discussing moving the voting off-site from schools. They have not made any determination as of yet, but it's for safety purposes in schools. So just keep that in mind. Thanks.
Thanks, Lisa. Anybody else? Greg? Yeah.
Greg Starrett, just wanted to thank you very much. Like you said, Marianne, you were talking about history and the warrior symbol and everything else, and I know that's going to happen there, but I do support the warrior name would be a great thing, and if that could be kept, that would be very nice. I think the kids are leaning that way too, and I think it's great that the kids are actually learning about the history and the plight of the indigenous people and what they went through and what had happened to them. And we wouldn't be having half of these discussions if this wasn't a big deal. So we get rid of that. I'm just thinking 20 years from now, when we've erased all that stuff and it's all wiped out because we canceled it, all that, kid's going to come by and say, what's that? What's an indigenous person? What's there? And there. 1950s, we had cowboys and Indians there, and the history lesson you gave was awesome. Thank you so much. It builds real pride in knowing where you come from in history and what Lake George went through to get where they are, and all the families and the people that have there and the community that they've involved and stuff like that. So I think the history is very important too. I love history, and I think we can learn a lot from it. So I'm always a little bit leery about canceling everything there, because you got to remember the bad stuff that's happened, because then you relive it. And that everybody's heard that. If you don't if you're not a steward of history, you are doomed to repeat it. So that's just my view on the whole thing. And thank you very much. And music, my children aren't in it right now. You said you saw the drop off, and they're part of that drop off because of their sports and their schedules and but thank you because they loved it and you were awesome. And the music program in the school, music it carries through math, through English, through poetry, through there. It enforces everything that you do. And you guys support it so well, and the whole community there, and the performances and the kids getting up and doing stuff there that they might not normally do. So thank you very much for everybody's work, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Greg. Anybody else? No? Well, all right then. The next item is adjournment. So do I have to read that? Be it resolved that the Board of Education of Lake George Central School District hereby adjourns this meeting. Do I have a motion? Donna? Janine has a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your night.